Trump and Elon are live? No, they're not. If they were live, there'd be more people watching. Wait, what?
You don't get complaints. But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay.
Yeah, true.
Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely.
Yeah,
on
imagine
things
that.
that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like, it's just common sense. It's not.
Exactly.
It's not draconian or radical. I think it's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it.
This is what's problematic.
So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out.
Yep.
So, that's a case where, like, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, like, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately. I'll tell you another crazy thing. So, one of the things is, like, we're trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this. Obviously, there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently.
Yeah.
So we're saying, let's, if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was.
What the fuck are these retards doing?
So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed.
This is insane.
The limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
Yes.
And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire.
Wow.
Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think
there's 1,000.
If we take those
what?
people and say, like, you know what? Instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to, boxes in a mine shaft,
just do it.
You could do practically anything else, and you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way.
How is this possible?
So. Anyway, so I think that's an example. Like, at a high level, if you say, like, how do we increase prosperity? Is we get people to shift from roles that are low to negative productivity to high productivity roles.
Negative productivity.
And so you increase the total output of goods and services, which means that there's a higher standard of living available for everyone.
Imagine that.
That's the actual goal. Everyone's very quiet, by the way. So are people normally this quiet?
Your detractors, Mr. Musk.
What?
Detractors? Is his DSP?
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted. We have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We've won the House.
Technically a plurality, but yes.
The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for.
Yes.
And a lot of times,
everybody voted for this.
They don't get what they voted for. But in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for.
They are.
And that's what democracy is all about.
Yep.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are, in effect, policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Oh, my God.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization.
The most transparent.
You know, and
he's
the
learning.
Kind of things we're doing are, I think, very, very simple and basic. They're not. You know, what I mentioned, for example, about Treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, taxpayer money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that the payment is explained, that organizations on the Do Not Pay list, which takes a lot to get there, that actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. These are not individual judgment decisions. These are about simply having sensible checks and balances in the system itself to ensure that taxpayer money is spent well. So it's got nothing to do with, like, say, a contract for some company of mine at all.
But if there is a conflict of interest when it comes to you yourself, for instance, you've received billions of dollars in federal contracts. When it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president I know has directed you to look into.
Yeah.
Are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the American people?
Well, all of our actions are fully public. So if you see anything, you say, like, wait a second, hey, Elon, that seems like maybe that's, you know, there's a conflict there. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately, you know?
Well, they are, even when it's not happening.
But transparency is what builds trust, not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy,
Completely
but
accurate.
transparency, so you can see everything that's going on. And then you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And if we thought that, we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watch that also.
Trust the billionaires?
He's a big businessman.
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
successful
I
at that.
should
That's
trust
why
the
we
other
want him doing
billionaires
this.
that
We
own
don't want
media companies.
an unsuccessful
of
guy doing
course.
this. Now, one thing also that
Why didn't
Elon
I
hasn't
think of
really
that?
mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use. But
trust
in this
Trump and
case,
Musk, though?
fraud
Yeah.
and abuse. It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them. And you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge
He's
who's
orange.
an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why? Why would
more
they want to do
gold
that? I
than the
campaigned on
gold.
this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt. And it is very corrupt. It's very, very, it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, you know, because
What?
nobody ends a contract. You get a lot of that. You have
I
a
want that
contract.
contract.
That's a 3-month contract. Now, normally, if you're in
That's
a small,
great.
In all fairness, it's the size of this thing is so big.
Yeah.
But if you have a contract and you're in a regular business, you end the contract in 3 months. You know, it's a consultant. Here's a contract for 3 months, but it goes on for 20 years. And the guy doesn't say that he got money for 20 years, you know? They don't say it. They just keep getting checks month after month. And you have various things like that. And even much worse than that, actually, much worse. And I guess you call that incompetence, maybe.
Yeah.
It
No.
could be corruption. It could be deals made
It's
on both sides.
it's corruption.
I guess the money he kicks. I think he has
Yeah.
a lot of kickback here.
There it is.
I see a lot of kickback here.
Yep.
A lot of kickbacks.
A tremendous kickback, because nobody could be so stupid to give out some of these contracts.
Exactly.
So he has to get a kickback.
Why not both? You're right.
That's what I got elected
Good point.
for. That and borders and military and a lot of
They
things.
sure did.
But this is a big part of it. And I hope that the court system is going to allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud, abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars. And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion that we're going to find.
That's a lot of money
That
to
will
just.
have quite an
Oh,
impact
there it
on
is.
the budget. And
Oh.
you'll go to a judge where they handpick a judge, and he has certain leanings I'm not knocking anybody for that, but he has certain leanings, and he wants us to stop looking. How do you stop looking? I mean, we've already found it. We have a case in New York where a hotel has paid $59 million. $59 million because it's housing.
Let me tell you, look,
migrants, illegal migrants, all illegal, I believe.
And they were being paid twice the normal room rate at 100% occupancy.
Unbelievable.
So it's a racket.
Yeah.
here they are.
Well, if I may sort of just going for the president's
See
comments, at a high level, okay, well, what are the two ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1 trillion? And it's really two things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half. And I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. So just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized nonstop. But with the support of the president, we can cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1, and then with deregulation, because there's a lot of sort of regulations that don't ultimately serve the public good.
No.
We need to free the builders of America to build, and if we do that, that means I think we can get the economic growth to be maybe 3-4%, maybe 5%, and that means if you can get $1 trillion of economic growth and you cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion, between now and next year, there is no inflation. There's no inflation in 26. And if the government is not borrowing as much, it means that interest costs decline. So everyone's, the mortgage, their car payment, their credit card bills, anything, their student debt, the monthly payments drop. That's a fantastic scenario for the average American. I mean, imagine they're going down the grocery aisle and the prices from one year to the next are the same.
He's telling him to shut up.
Their mortgage, all their debt payments dropped. How great
To
is
the
that for the
reporter.
average American?
We had
That's
no
what we're
idea. We had no idea we were going to find this much, and it's open. It's not like complicated.
It's not that
simple stuff.
complicated.
It's
a
like
lot of work. Yeah.
We can't believe it. A lot of work. A lot of smart people involved. Very, very smart people. But
Man.
you're talking about anywhere maybe 500 billion. It's crazy the kind of numbers you're
It is really
talking
crazy.
about. You know, normally when you're looking at something, you'll find you're looking for 1 out of 100. Here, you're almost reversing it. You look for one that's good.
Yeah.
And you can look at the title.
You build 100
and you say,
bridges
"Why
and
are
you
we
suck
doing
one
this? Why are
dick."
we doing that? And the public gets it. You know, the public gets it. You've seen the poll.
They're sucking
The
100
public
dicks,
is
they're
saying,
only
"Why are
building
we
one
paying all this
bridge."
money? This for years. This has gone on.
President Trump, Senator,
Yeah, go ahead. Wait, go ahead.
Senator Rand Paul today said that DOGE cuts will ultimately need a vote in Congress. Do you agree with that? Is that the
I
plan?
really don't know. I know this. We're finding tremendous
It's
fraud.
dickonomics? Yeah.
And tremendous abuse. If I need a vote of Congress to find fraud and abuse, it's fine with me. I think we'll get the vote, although there'll be some people that wouldn't vote. And how could a judge want to hold us back from finding all of this fraud and
Yep.
finding all of this incompetence? Why would that happen? Why would even Congress want to do that? Now, Congress, if we do need a vote, I think we'd get a very easy vote because we have a track record now. We've already found billions of dollars of abuse, incompetence, and corruption. A lot of corruption.
If a judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda, will you abide by that ruling? Will you
Well,
comply
I
with that
always
order?
abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum. And it gives crooked people more time to cover up the
To
books.
hide, yeah.
You know, if a person's
That-
crooked and they get caught,
Here, let me go back to this.
Other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes
You see?
harder later on. So,
Yeah.
the answer is I always abide by the courts, always
See?
abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
Yeah, if I can add to that, what we're finding is that a bunch of the fraud is not even going to Americans. So I think we can all agree that if there's going to be fraud, it should at least go to Americans. But a bunch of the fraud rings that are operating in the United States and taking advantage of the federal government, especially in the entitlements programs, are actually foreign fraud rings. They're operating in other countries and actually exporting money to other countries. We should stop that. And this is big numbers. Talk about $100 to $200 billion a year.
Well, this is accurate.
Serious.
Remember all the people that like they didn't even know their
Mr.
country was getting
An
USAID?
example of the fraud
They didn't even know.
that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza.
Yeah.
But after fact check this, it apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said
Why are we
were,
sending them condoms
correct,
in the
so we
first
can
place?
trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere.
Fuck.
Frankly, I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about.
No.
And that is really an enormous number of condoms if you think about it. But
a lot.
if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
Exactly. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, we work closely with the agency heads, there are sort of checks in place. So it's not just us just going in and doing things willy-nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads, and I check frequently with the president to make sure that this is what the president wants to have happen. So we talk almost every day, and I double check things to make sure, is this something, Mr. President, you want us to do this? Then we'll do it.
USAID has been one of your main targets. Are you concerned at all that some of the cuts or that shutting that agency altogether may lead to diseases or other bigger problems starting in other countries that then come to the United States?
Yeah, so that's an interesting example. So that's something where we work
that really
closely
helped
with
with
the State
COVID,
Department and Secretary Rubio. And we have, for example, turned on funding for Ebola prevention and for HIV prevention.
Left that, you said?
Yes, correct. And we are moving fast, so we will make mistakes, but we'll also fix the mistakes.
Stop
very
giving
quickly.
Yamato screen time.
Do you see it as a worthy cause, USAID?
I think that there's some worthy
cases,
things,
yeah,
but
some not,
overall, if you
obviously.
say what is the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good.
Yeah, wasting fucking money.
And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
True.
I can just ask a follow-up to the Pentagon contracts. If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon,
Oh my God.
and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is
Yes,
that
which we
a
definitely need
conflict
to
of
do and
interest?
are going to do at the president's request.
Yep.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know, because every one of them was.
The president said the other day that might look at
he's right.
treasuries. Could you explain that a little bit? What kind of fraud, and that question goes to both of you, what kind of fraud are you expecting to see or do you see right now in U.S. treasuries?
Yeah, I think you mean the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills, or.
You also referenced treasuries on Air Force One the other night.
Go ahead.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, really, the first order of business is to make sure we're actually collecting. Sorry for this. Although my son might enjoy this, but he's sticking his fingers in my ears and stuff. So it's a bit hard to hear sometimes. Hey, stop that. The stuff we're doing with Treasury Department is so basic that you can't believe it doesn't exist already. So for example, like I mentioned, just making sure that when a payment goes out, it has to have a payment categorization code. It's like, what type of payment is this? You can't just leave the field blank. Currently, many payments, the field is left blank. And you have to describe what's the payment for, some basic rationalization. That also is left blank. So this is why the Pentagon, when's the last time the Pentagon passed an audit? I mean, a decade ago, maybe? ever? Really?
Well, the Pentagon was
And
going
we wanna
to have an audit, but
just
didn't something
in order
happen?
to actually pass audits, you have to have financial information that allows you to trace the payments.
Yeah.
So.
What happened
You know,
before that?
and once in a while,
there's going to be an audit, and then
Treasury has to
what was
pause
it?
payments if it thinks the payment is going to a fraudulent organization. Like, if a company or an organization is on a do not pay list, we should not pay it. I'm sure you would agree. Like, if it's quite hard to get on that payment, the do not pay list, it means that this is someone that is just is like dead people, terrorists, known fraudsters, that kind of thing.
So they're
We
giving
should
money
not
to
pay them.
Twitch?
But currently we do,
Huh.
which is crazy. We should stop that.
Many transactions. And by the way, hundreds,
Many of
thousands
such
of
cases.
transactions like that. You know, we have a big team. And for the sake of the country, I hope that the person that's in charge and the other people that report to me that are in charge are allowed to do the right thing, namely make sure everything's honest, legitimate, and competent. But we're looking at just, when you look at USAID, that's one. We're going to look at the military. We're going to look at education.
Good.
They're much bigger areas. But the USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent, and it's really corrupt. And
Didn't
I
that
can't
woman that
imagine
ran
the judge
it
saying, well, it may
get
be
paid
corrupt, but
$180K?
you
She's
don't have
worth
the
$30
right. You got
million?
elected to look over the country and
That's
to,
crazy. Wow.
as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things
How
are
does that
right
happen?
that they're paying, or that things are honest that they're paying. And nobody can even believe this. Other people, law professors, they've been saying,
Rebecca, I took a piss.
how can you take that person's right away? You're supposed to be running the country, but we're not allowed to look at who they're paying it to and what they're paying. We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, 2 weeks?
Yes.
And it's going to go to numbers that you're not going to believe. And much, as I said, much is incompetence and much is dishonesty. We have to catch it. And the only way we're going to catch it is to look for it. And if a judge is going to say you're not allowed to look for it, that's pretty sad for our country. I don't understand how it could even work.
On the buyout program, can you personally guarantee that?
Which one?
The buyout program, the operative federal workers. Can you personally guarantee that the workers who opt in to resign now will be paid through
Well, they'll
September?
get their money, but they're getting a good deal. They're getting a big buyout. And what we're trying to do is reduce government. We have too many people. We have office space. It's occupied by 4%. Nobody's showing up to work because they were told not to. And then Biden gave them a 5-year pass, some of them, 48,000 of them, gave them a 5-year pass, that for 5 years you don't have to show up to work. And let me tell you, this is largely, much of this stuff is because of Biden. It's his fault. He allowed this country, what he did on our border. What he did on our border is almost not as bad as what he did with all of these contracts that have come out. It's a very sad day when we look at it. I can't even believe it. But many contracts just extend, and they just keep extending, and there was nobody there to correct it. And that cannot be, I can't imagine that could be held up by the court. Any court that would say that the president or his representatives, like Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of State, whatever, doesn't have the right to go over their books and make sure everything's honest. I mean, how can you have a country? You can't have anything that way. You can't have a business that way. You can't have a country that way. Hey, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Head out.
Back tonight. Mark Vogel will be at the White House tonight at 10 o'clock. If you want to come over, you can say hello to him.
Did you guys get anything in return?
Who did you say?
Not much. No, they were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship
Kanye?
where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people. They lost, in terms of soldiers, probably 1.5 million soldiers in a short period of time. We got to stop that war. And I'm interested primarily from the standpoint of death. We're losing all those soldiers. And they're not American soldiers, they're Ukrainian and Russian soldiers. But you're probably talking about 1.5 million. I think we got to bring that one to an end. Okay?
Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're moving.
Let's go. Let's move.
Thank you. We're moving.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock tonight at the White House.
And that was the tape playback of President Trump and Elon Musk really doubling down and even at times tripling down on the effects there of Doge and really Elon Musk's role in that department as Elon Musk says he's trying to find wasteful spending.
I'm gonna go at the beginning because I didn't see this happening.
Are we in 3, 2, 1? Let's go for it.
Nice meeting you here. Coming often?
X, are you okay? This is X, and he's a great guy, high IQ. He's a high IQ individual.
And he's got this, check out this cool chain he's got.
So thank you very much. We had a busy day today. The king just left, and we've had a great discussion, terrific discussion concerning Gaza and everything else. We had discussions also about Saturday at 12 o'clock. It's going to be a big moment. We'll see what happens. I don't expect much happening with these people, but we'll see what happens. And we're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's Doge, and I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad.
Man's recording his entire presidency?
And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. We want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that.
I think it seems pretty easy.
So maybe we have to look at the judges because that's very serious. I think it's a very serious violation. I'll ask Elon Musk to say a few words and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So at a high level, if you say what is the goal of Doge and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, FX, we would have to. It's all right. Tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, or if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy.
Yep.
So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public,
it's really refreshing. I'm 43. It's about time the shit gets unfucked.
The president, the House, and the
exactly.
Senate decide what happens, as opposed to a large,
Is he still mad at you?
Bureaucracy.
He said gaming journalism is bad recently, so he probably watched one of my videos.
Are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy. And if you looked at this, if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have turned out? Well, we have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want, and it does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit.
They're going to bring back the dollar menu.
And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country. And it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to
They're gonna
provide
Chipotle have
things
more
to
meat?
its citizens,
Yeah.
and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
Right.
etc.?
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps.
Yeah.
Just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why.
Wow.
Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, if you look at, say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations. We're talking about known fraudsters.
Wait,
known
it takes
aspects of
a
waste,
year to
known
stop
things that
paying
do
a
not
terrorist?
match any congressional appropriation. Can take up to a year to get on the list, and even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present.
How is
So you
this
say, like, well,
possible?
how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay.
You know who's mad about that?
Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old.
This is where we started.
Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Thank fucking God.
Even though we got in at 2 a.m, that we were getting up a couple hours.
Holy shit, thank God. They're getting rid of all these clowns, these roaches wasting our fucking money being retarded. Yeah, how are we supposed to trust anything from Doge when they're breaking dozens of law and working outside the powers of Congress? Well, I mean, how are you supposed to trust the government that's been doing that apparently for years? They've been doing this shit for years. And also, like, if you think that if they're breaking the law, then there's a policy and there's a procedure to hold them accountable. Now, personally, I think that what they're doing is great. I think it's a great thing. But then that's a policy, and you deal with that. Doge is operating entirely within the law. That's a lie. Congress approved that power for Obama. Well, what I'm saying is that if you think that they're breaking the law, then you can file a lawsuit and try to stop it from happening. But until then, they're going to do it. And, like, whether it's against the law or not, like, yeah, that matters. But like, if you want to look at it from like an ideological perspective, I totally support them. I absolutely do. And it's crazy to me that anybody wouldn't. That's what's so nuts about it. Like, who wouldn't support this? Who is actually... Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Yeah, there we go. All right. How do you argue against saving money? Because they don't want to give the people that they disagree with a W. It's more important for them that everything goes down in flames and they're not blamed than people are better off. They would rather burn the entire thing down than improve it. That's basically it. And so, like, what they're looking at is that, and here's really what's on the table. It's that if these guys can come in and prove that you have been wasting a bunch of money, your credibility and your future is deleted. Like, you don't have a future anymore. You're done. So they're like, it's all on the table for them because these are these roaches that have been living in this garbage and somebody's finally cleaning it up and the roaches are mad. That's it. That's why they're fucking pissed. That and they're solely responsible for blowing a bunch of money? Yeah, exactly. So about needs to be done. Yeah, I agree with them fixing a problem, but the way they're fixing a problem sets a precedent for the future that can bypass Congress. My understanding is that a lot of the allocations that this has happened, that this is okay with, were actually like created by Obama. So like, if you want to complain about that from a ideological perspective, that's totally fine. But I mean, and I think that's fair. It's very fair to say that. And like, if you criticize the process that they're using, that's fine. But I'm talking about the ideology. I support the ideology. I think that the goal that they have is a noble goal that I agree with. Now, that doesn't mean that any way that they go about achieving that goal is good. Of course not. However, I think this is good. Like, I want 19-year-olds to come in, and I want the 19-year-old kid that calls himself Big Balls and that says a bunch of stupid shit on the internet. I want him to come in and put your 30-year-old fucking federal government employee retard out of a fucking job. That's exactly what I want. Because I worked at the federal government. A lot of those people are fucking useless. They're useless and lazy. I've known other people that have worked at the federal government, and people in their departments were useless and lazy too. No more retards. Yes, get rid of them. Well, the ironic thing is that, so there was one process of tax form processing, and this is something that sometimes, like, once like the season was basically over, like, you would have more people transition over to this, especially if you were working overtime, because like usually a lot of days, like in April, like I would work like 12 hours a day if you could, right? Because you get paid a bunch of money. And so anyway, they had a person who literally had Down syndrome working there. And he was supposed to make sure that all of the trash that was thrown away, no documents were actually thrown away. And I was like, wait a minute, we have somebody who literally has Down syndrome working here. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? But it gets better. I watch him work. He's the best employee. You're kidding? No, I'm not. He did the job they gave him. Everybody else was talking. You describe my rank teammates? Yes. He does spectrum analysis? Yep, absolutely. And so, don't think a 19-year-old with no government experience should be firing people? I don't think that matters at all. No, I don't care. If these retards didn't want to get fired, then they shouldn't have fucked it up in the first place. Government experience. Yeah, you spent 30 years doing a bad job. Great. Well, that qualifies you to keep doing it, right? I don't think so. Nope. They're just data crunching and making the decisions based on data analysis? Yeah, of course. Someone without government is exactly who you need firing people. You want to look at a person's abilities, their approach, and their strategy rather than their identity, their credibility, and their history. Like, the thing that matters is the approach and if the approach is effective or not, and if it's not effective, how to make it more effective. People are attacking their credibility. What I find to be funny is that you've got a lot of these like young Democrat senators and you know, representatives like AOC, for example, spent her entire fucking career being insulted and fucking sidelined because she's young. And now that she's a bit older, now she's doing the same thing to big balls, to these other people in Doge. Well, this was happening to you. How are you doing this now? Like, who the fuck gave you any, like, who qualified you to run for Congress? Nobody. You did it and you won. It's embarrassing.